Welcome, welcome, everybody. Alongside Tyler Fulghum, I'm Joe Fortenbaugh. This is Bet. And we are coming to you from the Link Studio overlooking Caesars. The U.S. Open tees up tomorrow. We've got Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Heat and the Celtics. That's on ESPN at 7 p.m. Thursday night. Game 1 of Lakers Nuggets. Football card, Thursday Night Football. A lot.
Busy. But before we jump into that, I want to give you credit for nailing that intro. People out there, you would not believe how much Joe was ringing with anxiety over making sure he got that right.
Sweating on the inside.
And that we're at the Link overlooking Caesars. It took a while, but buddy, you nailed it. I feel something.
I feel good.
I feel something good brewing here.
I feel like it's all disaster the rest of the way out after that intro, that cold open, as they like to say sometimes. All right, let's get to business. NFL injuries. When it comes to NFL injuries, we got a lot of fallout this week. Now, most importantly, when it comes to NFL injuries and the point spread, it's the quarterbacks that mean more than anything. Drastic line moves. I remember back in the day, Aaron Rodgers used to be worth 8 to 10 points to the point spread when they'd have to drop off to a guy like Brett Hundley. The quarterbacks mean everything. Every other position, not so much.
Right.
Wide receivers, linemen, defensive backs, they might not even mean half a point to the spread. So, thankfully, we don't have any quarterbacks that got hurt in week 1. But we do still have several injuries that we have to discuss, starting with the Fulghum-Fortenbaugh matchup of the week. Your Rams versus my Philadelphia Eagles. Not looking good for the Birds this early on.
Who's the trainer? Who's the team doctor for your Philadelphia Eagles?
Dr. Nick Riviera.
I mean, they may need to rethink their inks when it comes to Nick Riviera, because this team has just been beset with awful injury luck. It continues. Not only what happened before week 1, but in week 1, they lose Vinny Curry, who's going on the IR. You had Derek Barnett suffer a concussion. Craig James, a defensive back who'd provide some depth there. He's going to be out for an extended period of time. So they may get Lane Johnson back. They may get Miles Sanders back on that offensive line and that backfield.
Yay.
They could use it, but man, I mean, I would not want to be down any offensive lineman with 99 Aaron Donald coming to town.
I'll tell you this. We have one more episode of this show this week. We're going to be on tomorrow, Thursday. Fulghum's Rams, Fortenbaugh's Eagles. We're going to have some sort of, dare I say, bet by tomorrow between the two of us. The line's been swinging. We're down to a pick 'em at this point, so we'll get to that at some point. A big injury in the NFC. A lot of people are talking about Michael Thomas, wide receiver, New Orleans Saints. Right now, the Saints are preparing as if Thomas won't play. It's a high ankle sprain. Nothing official yet, but they're preparing as if he won't play. Right here. They got the Raiders. Ooh. The Raider home opener in Vegas Monday night.
First game in the Death Star.
First game.
That's going to be exciting. The Raiders, of course, they had a happy flight back from Carolina after that big win over the Panthers, and a nice win for Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and the Saints week 1 against the Bucs. You know, I still think the Saints should be the favorite in this game, but I wonder about that offense. Now all you really have is Alvin Kamara. As far as wide receivers, if Michael Thomas doesn't play or if he's compromised significantly, you're looking at Traquan Smith and a kind of washed Emmanuel Sanders kind of washed, Jared Cook. Okay, he's all right, but I mean, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence because Drew Brees doesn't push the ball down the field anymore.
No, he does not.
His average depth of target for week 1 in that win was like 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And that's where Michael Thomas can take the ball and do damage because he's so physical. He can create after the catch and make Drew Brees look good. So if he doesn't have that beast with him against the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm a little concerned.
Nice job not calling him the you-know-what Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. You are razor sharp, my friend, considering we're only in week 2. I said something about Brees over the weekend a lot of people didn't like, all right? I think at this point in his career, he's a game manager.
Yeah,
I mean, first ballot Hall of Famer, yes.
Check.
One of the best to ever do it, yes.
Check.
This isn't about his career, though. If we're talking about 2020, I don't see him as anything more than a game manager. He's not being asked to push it down the field like you said. His yards per attempt was around 5.5 in the first game of the season.
Yeah.
Mitchell Trubisky last year was 6.1. That was 32nd in the NFL.
You dare
Brees,
put Mitchell Trubisky and Brees.
It's screen passes, it's comebacks. He plays smart, he plays cerebral, but they're not asking him to win games like they used to in the past.
Game manager at this point in his career, check. Hall of Famer and one of the best ever, check. You forgot to mention that he was the counselor for Tyler Fulghum in 1998 at the Purdue golf camp.
Interesting nuggets.
Also true. He signed a picture in a Maxim magazine I had. Remember, like when you're 14,
Maxim stuff,
exactly.
All of it, yeah.
He signed one. He said, "Take care of my girl. I just found like the hottest model I could in there, and he signed it. So I love Drew Brees.
Quite the anecdote. Quite the anecdote for the
not only a Hall
billions
of
of people
Famer,
out
but
there.
my counselor for Purdue golf in 1998.
You look at all the injuries across the landscape. One game I'm going to play as a result is the under, the 49ers and the Jets. It's
George
low,
Kittle.
42.5. So Kittle's got the sprained knee. They're not sure if he's going to be out. He missed practice on Wednesday. Probably going to play. We don't know as of yet, but he's banged up. The wide receiver unit's already banged up. Deebo Samuel didn't play in week 1. He's not expected to play this weekend. Richard Sherman is now going to be out for about 3 weeks with a calf injury. That hurts the secondary. The Niner defense tees off on statuesque quarterbacks. The mobile guys, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, to name a few, really give the Niners problems. Statuesque guys like Sam Darnold, those guys are a sitting duck for that Nick Bosa-led defensive line. I think the defense tees off. The Niner offense struggled, only 20 against the bad Cardinal defense over the weekend. I like the under 42.5. If you're taking the injuries and you're applying them to any game this weekend, where are you going?
I'm going to go to our matchup. So a little tease of what I think is to come on Sunday when Fortenbaugh and Fulghum go at it. It's a pick 'em right now.
like they did
old
back in
put
the.
your dukes
Come
up
on
there,
now,
Ford.
sir.
Come on now, see?
My honor is on the line.
It's a pick 'em right now. The Rams ended up as a pick 'em at close against the Cowboys. We saw them win that game. I do think the Cowboys are better than the Eagles, especially with all the injuries.
Watch your
the
mouth.
Offensive line, no Brandon Brooks, no Andre Dillard. Lane Johnson might come back.
Yay.
Miles Sanders might come back, but the defensive line, now that Vinny Curry's going on IR, is ravaged by injury, may not see Derek Barnett in that game as well. That would have been something that made me consider Philadelphia, because the weakness, I think, of the the Rams, is their offensive line. Sean McVay smartly got the ball out of Jared Goff's hands quickly against Dallas in their rush. I don't think he'll need to do that against your pass rush since it's so decimated by injury. So I do think the Rams score more than they did against the Dallas Cowboys, and I think Aaron Donald is going to feast on that interior offensive line, and Carson Wentz is going to be on his back again another 4 or 5 times. So
the
pick'em, I like the Rams.
Won't say this often, but I hope you're wrong, sir. I hope you're wrong. Won't say this often on the show, but I hope you're wrong. From the action on the gridiron this Sunday to the knee-high rough at Winged Foot. Not exactly knee-high, but it looks nasty if you've seen any images out there whatsoever. It's the 120th installment of the United States Open Championship. It's going back to Winged Foot for the 6th time. My question to you, sir, how treacherous is this place going to be?
There may not be a more treacherous test in the entire world than when the United States Open is played at this particular course. You mentioned the rough. It is long, par 70, 7,500 yards. The greens are like glass, rolling at 14 or 13 on the stimp meter, so you are going to have trouble controlling putts. And just think about the last time we saw this tournament here. 2006, Jeff Ogilvy won with a score of 5 over.
Oh, Phil Mickelson.
We have Mickelson off the
Put the driver back in the bag, Phil.
Melting like Phil Mickelson at Winged Foot. There was only 12 rounds. That entire 4 days under par. Go back to 1974 when Hale Irwin won the United States Open at this course.
Not to be confused with snow or rain. It's Hale.
7 over for Hale Irwin in 1974. So I think it's going to be an absolute beast, and the best golfers in the world. Some people might like it. The masochists out there might like watching the best golfers in the world struggle like you and I to post 72. There's going to be scores in the 80s. There's going to be a lot of scores in the mid to high 70s.
There's nothing we like more than watching people humbled. Your boy Tiger Woods, what do you think?
Well, Tiger said he would be happy on Sunday to run to the scorer's tent and sign a scorecard for 5 over. Now, if that happens or not, we can get into that a little bit later. But that's one of the best golfers of all time telling you he would be thrilled to sign a scorecard for 5 over on Sunday.
Tells you what you need to know.
Winged Foot is going to be.
All right, so let's take a look at some odds. Your boy Eldrick, not exactly the favorite like in the old days, 40-1. I'm sure the books are going to see a lot of action on Tiger Woods. Dustin Johnson, he's been cooking lately, plus 850. He's your favorite. John Rahm, who outdueled Johnson with that bomb 65-foot putt in overtime a few weeks back, he's at 10-1. Justin Thomas at 14-1, and old Rory McIlroy. Do we get overtime in golf? 18-1.
Is that a thing
overtime,
we do? Overtime?
Extra holes, playoff holes, whatever you want to call it. It's OT. We are now very happy to be joined by our good friend Anita Marks. Anita, welcome to the show. You are the first guest in the history of the show, Bet. Welcome. You have played Winged Foot, from what I understand, about a dozen times. Tell me about the course. What kind of insight can you give us?
It's insanely sick. It's a beast of a course, and keep in mind, I've never played the week leading into a tournament like this, but you guys touched on all that we're going to see, right? Like it's long. It's over 7,500 yards. You have to be long off the tee. You have to average over 300 yards with your drives. You cannot go into the rough, so you need driving accuracy. This rough is going to be anywhere between 5 to 6 inches, and it's a special kind of grass at Wingfoot that if your ball gets into the rough, it doesn't sit nice and pretty and tucked up, so it's easy to hit. No, this little sucker, it's like string, and your ball sinks really deep into it, and it's going to be a bear to get out of. So you need guys that can really get out of rough and are great in greens and regulation and strokes gained on approach, and it's going to be really hard. On top of that, and Tyler talked about this, greens are going to be running at 14s, 13s. So not only do you need to, as a golfer, as a professional golfer, not only do you got to reach the green and get on the green, hopefully in 2, but you need to be close to the hole, because chances are a lot of these dudes are going to be 3-putting all day long. And it's going to be sick. It's going to be a bear of a course. At the end of the day, probably more than likely, your 10 best golfers are really the only ones that are going to have a chance to win this thing this weekend. And they're going to be at the top of the leaderboard. Like your top guys, like DJ, like Rahm, like Schauffele, like JT, like Berger. Those are the guys that you need to put your money on, guys.
All right, well, I want to go back to my guy, Tiger Woods. If you put money on him and he wins, you're going to have a good ROI at 40-1. Like I said earlier, Anita, Tiger said he'd be thrilled on Sunday to sign a scorecard for 5 over par. My question for you is, do you think Tiger's even going to make it to Saturday and Sunday to try and sign a scorecard for 5 over par?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't think so. I host a golf podcast called On the Tee with Anita Marks. I know. And one of my favorite caddies here in the area, his name is Hooley. He's been at Wingfoot since 1985. He's been a caddy at Wingfoot since 1985. He broke down every hole for us yesterday on the podcast. And he said, this is very interesting. He said that the greens are going to be running at 14s early in the morning. Keep in mind, you got morning tee times, you got evening tee times, or afternoon tee times. The afternoon, greens won't be running as fast, all right, because they're going to be longer, they're going to grow during the course of the day, and also it's not going to be, the dew isn't going to be out there. They're not going to be as wet. They're not going to be as slick. Well, Tiger, guess what? He tees off Thursday at 8 a.m. Oh, so sad. On top of that, he said their superintendent, it's like, think about this. You're a superintendent of a golf course. Like, isn't it like a challenge for you to make the course so difficult that Tiger Woods can't make the cut? Apparently, that's what this guy has in his head. And he's trying to not let Tiger Woods make the cut. So, listen, not making the cut at plus 150, plus 170 in some places, grab it. I don't think he makes the cut, guys.
Tell that superintendent to leave. Tiger's like 45 now. It's not Tiger-proofing anymore. You got to DJ-proof it. You got to Rahm-proof it.
This is the redistribution of wealth. You take Tiger Woods, you trick out the course, you bring him down a notch like the common man. Anita, what other picks do you have for us?
Well, I'm going chalk here, and Joe, we've been working together for a while now. I don't typically do that. I like to find value when I wager, but I'm going DJ here. Granted, listen, plus 850, that's still good value, but he won 2 stops on the FedEx Cup. He won 3 regular tour, regular season tournaments. His game is just otherworldly right now. And on top of that, listen, you're going to need a lot of mental wherewithal to compete the next 4 days, because your game is not always going to be on point. You're going to miss shots. You need to mentally be able to put that behind you, and that's something DJ's been able to do. He's fit. It's a long course. He can handle it. He's mentally ready. I like it. Also, here's a really fun one I'm going to put some coin on. That's DJ to finish first, Rahm to finish second. You can get that 85-1.
Super
like I said,
chalk.
you've got maybe a handful of guys, 10 guys that I think really, honestly can win this thing. And definitely DJ and Rahm are at the top of that list.
It's like horse racing. It's an exacta. I love it. I'm going to bring out the big fade, pun intended, based on the way I play golf. Jordan Spieth to miss the cut. It's plus 105. Jordan Spieth to miss the cut, plus 105. Not playing very well these days. Missed the cut at the Safeway Open last week. He was 181st in driving accuracy last season. You got to be able to hit fairways at the U.S. Open, especially at Wingfoot. And I think it's his last 10 events, he's finished in the top 30, better than 30th, only 2 times. Not not in good form, fading Jordan Spieth. Tyler Fulghum, you're on the clock. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I don't like you, Anita and Joe, picking on my guys, Spieth and Tiger Woods. But Anita, if you won't do it, I am going to try and find some value here. How about Tommy Fleetwood and his hair at 35-1? And Tommy has not been in the greatest form this year. However, he may have found something over on the European Tour last week at the Portugal Masters when he led the field in strokes gained on approach, and we know that it's going to be a vital statistic to the winner this year at Winged Foot. Tommy's always, when he's on his game, one of the best iron players in the world, and he's always done very well at the United States Open test. Go back to 17 and 18, back-to-back top 5 finishes, 4th and 2nd. So Fleetwood at 35-1, kind of getting his mojo going with his irons. If he can grind, I like that value as a pick to win at Winged Foot. And we know it's just a matter of time before Fleetwood breaks through and gets his first major.
Good stuff. Anita, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck this weekend.
You got it.
All right, so there we have it from the grass. I don't know if it's Poa Annoi. I haven't looked that deep into it. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
I don't know what it is.
But the grass at Winged Foot, we're going back to the hardwood.
Okay.
Game 2, Eastern Conference Finals between the Celtics and the Heat. ESPN, 7 p.m. Thursday night. Miami once again. I don't know if you saw it. I'm guessing you did.
I did.
Miami again playing possum. They get into the fourth quarter. They annihilate the Celtics in the fourth. They take it to overtime. They win 117-114. They're now up 1-9. People are talking about Heat culture. Heat culture. They're saying that's a thing. Heat culture.
I keep hearing it in my ear.
Do you believe in Heat culture?
Yeah, I do. I think Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra obviously have the rings to back it up. Riley's the godfather and Spoelstra's the godson. And Jimmy Butler fits Heat culture because he is one of the toughest minded two-way players in the NBA, and Bam Adebayo fits it as well. When the Heat became so enamored with him coming out of Kentucky.
What a block!
Because of that defense, because of that body, and the fact that Bam came in there and said, I want to be great. He looked Pat Riley in the eye and said, I want to be great. I don't just want to collect my check. I want to be someone who impacts culture and impacts winning.
And then also collect my check.
And then collect his check. So you have two guys that you build around like Butler and Adebayo, and then you fill it in with Tyler Hero, who has the stones of a 15-year veteran.
Hell of a last name.
A rookie. Yeah, he has been a hero. Duncan Robinson can shoot. Jay Crowder is as tough as nails, as tough as they get. Andre Iguodala, he's a Finals MVP. So this is a culture, a locker room that is built to win. So I'm not surprised they took game 1. I think this is going to be an absolute bloodbath of a series. I mean, the
Red Wedding.
I'd be dumbfounded. Yeah, Game of Thrones Red Wedding style. There are going to be just never mind. I won't even go there with that. But it is going to be ugly. In a good way for the viewer. They're going to be.
It's going to be so ugly, you're going to love it.
Joe, we are going to be given a treat of some great high-level basketball on both ends, I think, for 7 games.
Let's talk about low-level betting. Bad news, you and I were both on the under in game 1.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to sit here and go, well, it was overtime, it wasn't fair, it's regulation, they still put a lot on the board. So. We've talked a lot about unders when it comes to Boston games and when it comes to Miami games. Take a look at that graphic, my friend. We had that done just for you. You rolling with the unders? You going to continue betting unders in this series?
I'm going to continue betting unders in this series. I'm going to continue betting unders for the rest of this postseason because I think pace is going to slow down. And we're getting now to, obviously, the Heat and Boston, two of the best defensive teams in the NBA. In the Western Conference, the Lakers, one of the best teams in the NBA. The Nuggets usually build their identity on defense. That's what Mike Malone likes, but they've been hit or miss here in this postseason. So I think we're going to see a lot of unders here in the conference finals and the NBA finals whenever we get there.
Right now, if you are watching this fine program and you're looking to make a wager and you really like this handsome gentleman over here, I'm wondering if he's going to give you something. What do you like in game 2 or beyond? Anything fancy tickle your fancy, as they say?
I do like Boston to rebound. I have Boston winning this series.
Rebound figuratively or literally? Because they're literally going to need to if they want to win.
Quite literally both, Joe. Figuratively and literally. I think they're going to rebound. I picked them in game 1. They fell just a little bit short. Obviously, it was a coin flip going into double overtime there. But I think they have the best player on the floor in Jason Tatum, and that is no disrespect to Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, who I think are elite level players. Jason Tatum, at such a young age, is already rising to that kind of borderline Doncic, borderline LeBron.
Kid's a star.
I mean, he is a star in the making. So what I'm going to do, since even though Boston lost game 1, since I believe Boston is still going to win this series, I'm going to get tremendous value and just say now that they're down 0-1, Boston and 7. Boston wins the series, and it's going to go 7 games because these two teams are just so evenly matched They're both great, and I think we're going to have a great series.
You're betting a marathon, something that's not going to happen for a while. I'm betting a sprint.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to bet a sprint. Give me the camera. Give me my camera right here, please. Right here. I want to speak to the people directly. Game 2, Boston to win the first quarter by half a point.
Ooh.
Half-point spread, you just need
Why
to win
do you
the
say
first
that?
quarter. The Miami Heat might be the best in the business when it comes to closing out games. Shout out the Clippers who can't close out anything. We'll get to them in a moment.
That was a cheap
the
shot,
Miami
Joseph.
Heat of 16 playoff teams, number 1 in fourth quarter scoring, number 1 in fourth quarter field goal percentage. That's fantastic, but. First quarter has been a disaster for them. In 10 playoff games, they have been outscored in the first quarter 7 times. It doesn't really matter because they still go on to win. In addition, of 16 playoff teams, they're currently scoring, is what I meant to say, currently scoring 12th best. 12th best out of 16 teams in the playoffs in the first quarter. They go on to win, so no one pays attention. Take the Celtics. Lay the half a point. They're down 0-1 in the series. They're going to come out hungry. That's the play in game 2. Now, we got to talk about game 1. And not that game 1, another game 1. Western Conference Finals. It's the Battle of Los Angeles.
Dude.
Clippers blow it. They lose 3 in a row after that 3-1 series lead. I want to get into game 1, but there's got to be a reaction.
Like
Thoughts?
Doc Rivers, Kawhi
Paul
Leonard,
George.
Paul George.
How does that happen?
They thoroughly got outplayed the last 3 games of the series. It was Paul George and Kawhi Leonard versus Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic.
He
and
cooked them.
The Nuggets the Nuggets duo absolutely demolished that other duo that some were calling the best in the NBA
They were.
going into the season. But I want to credit the Nuggets, not talk about the Clippers and their misfortunes, why they didn't make the conference finals. The Nuggets deserve our praise, our acclaim for
They do.
battling back in 2 series back-to-back from a 3-1
Hard.
deficit. And now they get LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Lakers, who are the prohibitive favorites now to win the Western Conference. You know, Joe, I've noticed a trend. The world watching Bet, the world watching me on Daily Wager will get to know that Tyler Fulghum is LeBron James' stan. He is the king. He is my GOAT. Okay,
Yeah, I've known you 5 weeks. I hear about it every other day, it feels like.
So you're getting used to it.
Not saying I have a problem with it.
I mean, that dead horse.
I just hear about it a lot.
I'm just making sure that dead horse doesn't get up. Okay, the last thing I want for is that dead horse to get up and trot off.
Like
so
the Nuggets.
I will just keep on beating it. But I've noticed something as a LeBron stan that the last 7 playoff series that LeBron teams have played, they have lost game 1 of that series 6 of those 7 times outright. Forget the spread. Outright
Really?
L's. And what we see against the Portland Trailblazers in game 1 of that series? An L.
An L.
What do we see against Houston in game 1 of that series?
Hold on a second. Hold that L.
That's an L. So I do think the Nuggets, with an extra day's rest going into game 1, will be rejuvenated. They'll ride the momentum. LeBron's been sitting back drinking Cabernets and Pinots and Merlots, and I think he likes to use game 1s of a series to just kind of feel it out. How is Mike Malone going to defend me? Where are my openings going to be to kick out, my openings to drive? I think that's what LeBron uses at game 1. He wants to win, but more importantly, he's got to get a sense of how he's going to be guarded, how they're going to defend him, so he can best attack the weaknesses.
It's a scouting report game.
I love the creamy Niuggets and the points for game 1. If I'm feeling sassy, Joe, I might
Don't
even
say
take
it.
the money line with the Nuggets in game 1 because that's just a trend I cannot ignore for LeBron-led teams.
People could think you're blowing smoke. I am here to testify that he told me this last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, regarding the Rockets series, and I sat there and I was like, yeah, the Rockets are going to get cooked in this thing. And they did, but not in game 1.
Right.
You're dead on. You played the money line. You love the points as well.
Yes.
Did you know when it comes to the Denver Nuggets, their original flight home from the bubble was scheduled for August 26th?
That's almost a month ago.
They had scheduled their original flight home August
Almost a month.
26th. We'll see what happens, and they kept pushing it back. And now Mike Malone, shout out to Sacramento Kings letting him get away. Mike Malone and the Nuggets now find themselves in the Western Conference Finals. They're huge underdogs, but you know what? It's already been a success no matter how this thing plays out, right?
Absolutely. I mean, again, Malone deserves a lot of credit. I have been on him for not playing Michael Porter Jr. enough minutes and kind of dismissing his defense a little bit too much, but you got to credit Mike Malone coached the team to a victory down 3-1 against the LA Clippers. So regardless of what he's doing in terms of rotation and minutes, he has to get credit from me, and I'm going to give him that credit. And Jokic and Murray have just been absolute studs in elimination games.
No doubt. No doubt indeed.
Again, the Lakers get up 3-1. That's exactly where Denver wants them. How do you feel about this bad boy? Am I crazy for giving the Nuggets that much credit?
I'm very much
against the
looking
Lakers?
forward to it. Rather than big picture stuff, which we'll talk about tomorrow on the show, I'm going to give you something small.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play the under in game 1. It's sitting around 212. I'm going to give you the under game 1, 212.
I like that.
Both teams play very well defensively. Both teams play at a relatively slow pace. In addition to that, as they've gotten into the playoffs, the pace for each team has dropped. The defensive ratings for each team have gotten better. Not going up, because that would be a bad thing. You want your defensive rating to go down from a number perspective. All you need to know is exactly that. These are not two teams that are looking to fly up and down the court. They look to play it in the half court. They look to slow it down. They look to play defense. The defensive ratings are up in the bubble. Their paces are down in the bubble. Overall, I'm going to go under 212 in game 1, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Now, LeBron James, big series for LeBron James and the legacy, especially now that the Clippers are down. Speaking of LeBron, what's his home state?
He is from Akron, Ohio.
He's from Ohio, my friend. That is a battleground state. It's what they call a swing state with the upcoming election. We're not going to get into that, any of that stuff, but what we are going to get into is Thursday Night Football.
Ooh.
It's the Browns and the Bengals with an E. I've been told, I say Bengals with an A. Bengals. I'm going to work very hard on Bengals.
Wasn't that a group too, the Bengals? Didn't
Something
they have
like
a
that. I think
banger
that's why
back in
people
the
get
80s?
so offended, because I get it so. I'm going to just say Cincinnati and Cleveland. Yeah, there you go. Maybe not. There you go. Let's go ahead and temper that back down. That'll be the Friday show, the one that's not scheduled yet. The Bengals and the Browns. First thing I want to ask you on that,
Okay.
Cincinnati's laying 5.5 in this game. 5.5. They just got railroaded by
Right.
Baltimore in week 1. I'm hearing that the spread's now up to 6. So they're laying 6 points after getting railroaded. Are you surprised at all that the number's that high?
I am a little surprised because Cincinnati looked competent with Joe Burrow, especially on that potential game-winning drive when Randy Bullock.
Burrow looked competent.
But no one expects the Bengals to be that good this year. There were some expectations yet again for Kevin Stefanski, Baker Mayfield, and the Cleveland Browns, but
That's
it seems to
record.
be falling apart very quickly. Some things that I noticed week 1, and who knows if it was just a byproduct of playing against a team that got out to a big lead and not being able to stick to your game script. But Odell Beckham wasn't targeted enough, nor was Jarvis Landry. Nick Chubb was actually out-touched, I believe, by Kareem Hunt in that game. But now you have a game script that should fit their best offensive player, Nick Chubb. You're almost a touchdown favorite. And when you're a favorite by that much, that is a positive correlation to running back production. So if Nick Chubb is able to run on this Cincinnati team, who, by the way, was out without their best defensive lineman, Geno Atkins, for week 1, keep an eye on that. If Atkins is out again week 2,
That's an injury alert, folks.
Just boosts
He's very good at that.
Nick Chubb's probability of being productive. I'm not ready to jump off their bandwagon yet, and here's the reason why. The Baltimore Ravens might be the best team in the NFL.
They're good.
No shame in getting absolutely boat raced by them. As a matter of fact, go back to week 2 or 3.
There's a little shame. It's still professional
go back to
football.
Week 2 or
Don't
3
get boat
last
raced.
year, and it was Cleveland that beat the brakes off of the Baltimore Ravens.
Feels like 20 years ago.
Feels like 20 years ago, I agree. But if they get busted in this bad boy by Cincinnati, then there's reason to kind of sound the alarm. But in this game where they only scored, 6 points, 7 points against Baltimore?
Something that was a single digit. Fits nicely in the overhead compartment.
They did still have 20 first downs. They did move the ball. They just had turnovers and a lack of finishing drives. So there's kind of a little bit of glimmer of hope that I'm leaning on, that maybe they aren't as bad as the final score looked. Maybe Stefanski, Baker Mayfield can do what they could have done, can finish the job, so to speak, against a much less quality opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals, as opposed to maybe the best team
I'll
in the
piggyback
NFL.
right off that. Cleveland wants to run the ball. That's Stefanski's MO.
Right.
Cincinnati ranked 32nd in run defense last year, and in week 1 against the Chargers, they gave up 155 yards on the ground. This is a game where Cleveland can get the ground game running, and that can establish the rest of the offense, which leads me into thinking you might have a prop for me regarding that information.
Yeah, Nick Chubb, his prop is set at, I believe, 70.5, according to rushing yards. 70.5 rushing yards for Nick Chubb, according to Caesars William Hill. And like I was just saying, we have a positive game script for Nick Chubb. They were big-time underdogs against Baltimore, so it should be no surprise that Nick Chubb struggled. But as almost, again, a touchdown favorite, Nick Chubb should get 18 to 24 carries, unless, again, the unthinkable happens and Cincinnati jumps out to a big lead early. But if it's a close game, if it's in a neutral situation, then Nick Chubb should be fed the rock. And you mentioned that great stat about how effective the Chargers were running against this Geno Atkins-less defensive line of the Cincinnati Bengals. If he's out again, I love Chubb over 70.5 rushing yards against Cincinnati in week 2, because I do think they bounce back and get the dub.
This is me right here. feeling extremely nauseous because I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a pick that's not for the faint of heart. I'm going to lay the 6 with the Cleveland Browns. On the look-ahead line last week, the line that comes out a week in advance, the look-ahead line for this game was Browns minus 8.5. Now, the Browns lost, which people expected. Bengals lost as well, which people expected. This thing dropped as low as 5.5, and now it's 6. It moved through the key number of 7. That is a massive over-adjustment, in my opinion, based on a few things. Number one, we expected those teams to lose. Number two, Cleveland is going to be able to run the ball, which plays right into their offense. Number three, Joe Burrow on the road for his first game. Just 4 days after his first game. It's a quick turnaround. Everything's lining up.
You're doing it.
It makes me sick. I'm going to lay it with the Cleveland Browns. Ladies and gentlemen.
You got more stones than me.
That's a show. Hold your nose on that game Thursday night. We're back tomorrow. He's Tyler Fulghum. I'm Joe Fortenbaugh. We've got a game 1, a game 2, Thursday night football. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
United States Open.
And best of luck.